Good morning, good morning, good morning, amazing law nerd. We have a new case that we are talking about, which is, it's the beginning of the year. It's Tuesday, it's January 13th, and we got some new stuff to talk about. So, of course we do, because of course we do. So today we are going to be talking and answering some questions about the murder of Spencer and Monique Tepe. Monique Tepe's ex-husband, Michael McKee, was arrested over the weekend. And if you are not familiar with this case, do not worry. I will fill you in. If you are familiar with this case, do not worry. We will ground it in what is known, what is not known, what is reasonably surmised, and what is all just wild speculation. So we will address all of those aspects of a case, because when we look at a case that is right at the beginning of the process, right at the beginning of the court process, when it is a newer case, when there's just been an arrest made, the difficult thing is there's a lot of unknown. And what I have found in doing this, and what you all know to be true, is that the interwebs are wildly uncomfortable with the unknown, so many will just fill in the gap. So they will fill in the space, fill in the unknown with speculation, things that aren't grounded in fact, and otherwise, well, fuckery. It's fuckery. So we're going to talk about the facts as we know them, what we're going to have to wait for, and what information we can glean. Now, the accused, Michael McKee, was in court yesterday. We're going to watch that court hearing. It is brief. We are going to talk about what comes next, and we are going to talk about the new charges. So from the time I recorded the podcast to the time that the podcast went live, there is quite a lot that has happened in this case. Also, we can catch everybody up to speed in the Law Nerd audience. And while we're going to be in both Illinois and Ohio today, so we have multiple states that we're going to be talking about, and then the rest of the week getting back to some of the other cases that we've been covering, because we'll have some time between kind of next steps in this case, is what I suspect. But when I started covering the Reiner case and started talking a bit about the Reiner case, the feedback I got from the vast majority of the law nerds and the new law nerds were, thank you. Thank you. I wasn't sure what was happening in this case. I just want to be able to understand what we know, understand what we don't know, understand what the court process is, and understand that, yes, we might have to wait. Yes, it is uncomfortable. Yes, waiting is difficult. However, the thing that you know is that there will be a court process. Now, sometimes the court process is unsatisfying. We were waiting in the Kohberger case for there to be a preliminary hearing, so we would learn more. And we were like, great, we'll wait. We'll learn more at a preliminary hearing. And then they did an indictment. No preliminary hearing. And we're like, okay, well, we'll wait for a trial date. And then on the precipice, and then we got a trial date, and then it got kicked, and then it got kicked again, and then it changed venue, and then it got kicked again. And then we were on the precipice of a trial date, and it pled. So in the Kohberger case, sometimes we see that the court process, though it comes to its own resolution, sometimes doesn't answer all the questions that are outstanding. Now, there is a new lawsuit in and surrounding the Kohberger case that we're going to cover, just not today. But there is more information in that civil lawsuit. We will get to the civil lawsuit. We're just not going to get to it today. But it is on my docket to get to the civil lawsuit surrounding the Kohberger case, because the families are suing the university. We will get there. It is on my docket. We're just not going to get there yet. We're going to cover this today. We also have some stuff going on in the Richens case that we will be covering this week too. So we have lots to do today, law nerds. So today we are going to talk about the arrest of Michael McKee and the Tepe case, answer your questions, hopefully ground us all in some more facts, and help navigate the early stages of a case. That's the goal today. Sound good? All right, Law Nerds, we're going to roll the intro and we are going to get right into it because, well, that's what we do here. So let's go. Hey there, I'm lawyer and legal analyst Emily D. Baker, and this is your go-to destination for live court coverage. I break down the law, the strategy, and the evidence in real time so you know what's happening. No law degree required. So join the law nerds in the chat. They're here for the facts, not and let's get to court. And yes, for all of you who are familiar with some of the surrounding areas of this case, as I've already seen many in the chat are, and I would not be surprised if we have those in the chat that are familiar with parties in this case. I know that we saw some of that in the recording of the podcast. For everyone connected to this case, it's going to be disorienting. It's going to be surreal. It is going to feel too close to home. And you're going to have a different understanding of why we moderate the chat the way that we do, because in every case we cover, there are people connected to the case or the community in our chat. And the feedback that we regularly get behind the scenes is that they are made more hopeful by the way that our chat is compassionate, is kind, will have conversations about things that are happening without resorting to attacking the people involved. And there are cases where that's really, really hard to do, and the law nerds still navigate it with grace. So thank you. And to everyone who is sadly connected to this case, I'm sorry. It's really tough, and it's going to be tough. It's a sad case. And so while we don't do a ton of quick bits on the channel anymore, I have been trying very hard to stick with a, one horse, one rider on the stream. Like, hey, we've got one topic. We're covering that one topic today. There is a side quest. If you will allow me a side quest for just a few minutes, I would very much appreciate it, Law Nerds. I hope that you don't mind. Just the briefest of side quests before we get to the rest of our coverage today. Because, well, I don't talk about politics on the channel. I find that when we are trying to cover nuanced thinking, politics can be difficult to maintain nuance, and it's really hard to navigate talking about both sides of a thing when it hits so close to home for so many. So while we are going to be talking adjacent to politics for just a moment, I think all of you will be on board with this one. I do. I think this is the rarest of circumstances where everyone is going to be like, yo, we're good. Oh, somebody's like, I have a fuzz. I do have a fuzz. I don't know where that fuzz came from. Thanks, Law Nerds. We'll fix it in post. Emily, you have a fuzz. I have cats, and I don't know how I had a fuzz. We'll fix the fuzz as we pull up the story. What fuzz? What fuzz is this? But yes, thank you, chat, for good looking out. I don't know where the fuzz came from. We have an under eye fuzz, but that was not on my glasses. It was on my face. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. So this, I think we're all going to be on the same page on, and I appreciate you indulging me for just 1 minute because well, are we surprised that Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey won't run for re-election? Anyone shocked? Raise your hand if you're shocked. Put a 1 in the chat if you're not shocked. We're all here falling over of not surprised. We're all falling over of not surprised. Shock. Look, if there's a moment where we all could be like, yes, please. Now, I had assumed that this had already been announced. Maybe that's on me. I had just assumed that this had already been announced. I didn't realize he had not officially announced that he was not running for re-election. I thought that this had already happened. That's the only reason I was surprised to see the headlines, is because I'm like, didn't he already do that? Like, didn't he already do that? Didn't this already happen? But no, it didn't. So now it's official. So yay, now it's official. Look, y'all, a Morrissey decision that we agree with. Look at that. Wow. Look, Just there we are. Just not surprised. But we're going to take a look at this. It came across my Apple News alerts. We're going to take a look at this from Mass Live. Embattled Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey won't run for re-election. Shock, I tell you. I am shocked. Longtime Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey announced Monday afternoon that he won't seek re-election to the post that he has held for more than a decade. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that he had been the DA for more than a decade, but also, girl, what are you doing? He's like, it's time to retire. Yup. It's time to park the car out of the state of Massachusetts, out of the Commonwealth. You're going to have Florida. Is that where he's headed? Like somewhere warm? Where are we going? Where do you go when you retire from Massachusetts? I think it's just a joke that everyone goes to Florida, but so finally he is stepping away. Longtime Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey announced Monday afternoon that he won't seek re-election to the post he's held for more than a decade. Morrissey, who was elected district attorney in 2010 after serving in the state Senate and House of Representatives. Really? I didn't know that. Dude, did you ever work as a prosecutor? Sir, I was joking when I said it seemed like you were more of a politician than a trial lawyer. Was I accidentally correct? I feel like I was accidentally correct because you run your office like you've never gone to trial yourself. Like you can tell when the elected heads of district attorney's office did not actually do the job. You can tell. Like you can tell. Look, I don't think district attorney should be a political office. I understand that it should be an elected position, but I think it should be a position where you have to have some requisite legal experience to hold the position. Is that too much to ask? I'm fine with people electing the DA and electing the DA out. Sure. The community should have a say in what the community feels should be prosecuted, should not be prosecuted, how it should be prosecuted. However, I think career politicians in district attorney's offices are a bad idea. But that's just my opinion on it. I think it is a bad idea. It should not, prosecution should not be weaponized by politicians. I know, it's spicy this morning. If someone breaks the law, they should be investigated. But okay. Either way, I'm not shocked by this because he actually acted like someone who had never held the job. When they got done with the first Karen Reed prosecution and Michael Morrissey immediately turned around and said, we're retrying the case without even taking like 2 deep breaths, I was like, how do you even say that without looking at what the jury did in this case, without looking at how the evidence came in, without looking at the witnesses, without talking to Adam Lally? I mean, maybe you don't want to talk to Attorney Lally, but you have to. You can't just have a press release 30 seconds after it hangs and go, we're re-prosecuting this case. That's just not what you do as a prosecutor. You have to reevaluate. But no, he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just hurl some more of the taxpayers' money at it. Right. Like that. Right. So Morrissey, who worked in the state Senate and House of Representatives, said in a statement that he believed it was the right time to start a new chapter in my life. Maybe one out of public service. Maybe one out of public service would be good. Yeah, maybe one out of public service would be good. Oh, there's more of a quote from him. Quote from District Attorney Morrissey: I ran for this office to stand up for victims and to give them a voice. I am proud to have done so for countless victims over the years, and am deeply grateful for the trust placed in me and in the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. Is the trust with us? Or no? Because is the trust here? Because, like, we've seen the Birchmore case. We watched the Karen Reed case. Twice. We also watched Adam Mallory testify about the fact that when he wasn't getting things turned over from law enforcement, his process for getting that to the defense literally boiled down to, meh. We'll get it when we get it. Do you have a process for that? We'll get it. We'll get it when we get it. Dude, it's been 5 years. We'll get it eventually. Okay. The article goes on to say Morrissey's office has been the center of controversy in recent years for the prosecution of Karen Reed and the investigation in the death of Sandra Birchmore. I mean, did they do an investigation into the death of Sandra Birchmore, or did they just have to wait for the feds? Because reasons. It goes on to say Reed was accused of running over her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with her Lexus on January 29th, 2022. But during her 2 criminal trials, Reed and her defense team claimed that Morrissey's office was part of a conspiracy to frame her for O'Keefe's death. Even if we take that out, even if we take all of that out, the appalling lack of investigation, procedures, policies, evidence handling, turning over evidence, like take that out of it. Because some people are going to hear the word conspiracy and just be like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. People will have feelings. Take that part out. Reed and her defense team showed, we're going to rewrite it. Reed and her defense team showed that the prosecution's theory of the case was fundamentally untenable, that they had not investigated the case to prove what they brought to trial, and that they lacked basic procedures for storing, disclosing, turning over evidence. Like, let's just focus on what they did badly. You can talk about this case while focused on what they did badly. This was not a good investigation. There were no proper policies to handle evidence. And it's why the defense team was able to more broadly point at what law enforcement didn't do. So, there's that. Continuing on with that, ACP2 said fundamentally untenable was my nickname in college. Good to see you. And also, that's hilarious. It's like the opposite of plays well with others, but entertaining nonetheless. It goes on to say, after the explosion of public support for Reed and the view of what law enforcement was or was not actually doing, after the explosion of public support for Reed, Morrissey published a video denouncing the conspiracy claims and supporting the civilian witnesses who Reed claimed were framing her. But after that, he largely withdrew from public eye. I wonder why. Reed was eventually acquitted of all charges having to do with O'Keefe's death. In the case of Birchmore, who was found dead in her Canton apartment in February 2021, Massachusetts State Police investigators assigned to Morrissey's office ruled her death a suicide. Right. Until the feds came in and charged Staunton police officer Matthew Farwell with murder. Federal prosecutors have since charged Staunton police officer Matthew Farwell with killing Birchmore and accused him of grooming Birchmore beginning when she was a teenager. It's worse than that. That paragraph doesn't give you all of the bad. If you have not looked into the Birchmore case, I have one video on it. I'm keeping an eye on it, but it is a federal case. And we're not going to be able to watch that as it goes to trial, but I'm keeping an eye on that. It is so much worse than that. Yes, chat. The facts of that case are worse than my pronunciation of Stoughton, Stowtown, Dizzy, that, all of that. So there's that. They go on to say already 4 candidates have announced their intention to run for the seat, including Adam Deitich, D-E-I-T-C-H. Adam, we'll just go with Adam. The former federal prosecutor who led the federal investigation into the Reed case. Let's just pause for a moment. The federal prosecutor who led the investigation into the Reed case is running for district attorney of Norfolk. Look, I'm just saying, if you're looking for somebody who might be willing to fuck some shit up, I'm just saying, the wildness of that. I'm very interested in seeing how this goes. And I am sure that everyone else running for the office is qualified. However, I'm sure they're great. I'm sure everybody's great. But if you are looking for someone to come into that office and upend it, because if they were looking into the Reed case and leading the federal investigation into the Reed case, what else do they know? Because the Reed case wasn't investigated in a vacuum. The Birchmore case wasn't investigated in a vacuum. What other cases were on their radar? And what other cases were they noodling around on? And who else's cell phones do they have? We only got a portion of what the feds had. These are the feds. Like, Adam, are you the dude that hired the crash daddies? Like, is that who hired the crash daddies? What else do you know about what's going on in the Norfolk DA's office? Because I'm sure there are some within the Norfolk DA's office who are ready to upend the DA's office. But they're not going to know what the feds were looking at, and they're not going to know proverbially where all the bodies are buried. But the feds might. So. Becky said the FBI hired the crash daddies. The FBI can't do it without the direction of the prosecutor who's doing the grand jury. If he was the prosecutor leading the federal investigation, he might well have been the prosecutor heading the grand jury. And if he was, then those investigations would have happened under his direction, because the FBI can't just put together a grand jury on their own. They need the prosecutor to kind of head that up. The FBI! So, Fern's mom in the chat said Dewana's likely to shake stuff up as well, which is great. Here's what I'm curious about. Whoever runs and wins, I hope that they work with some of the other people running on their team, which they can do. They can decide to work together. Adam can put others that are running on his team if he wins, and vice versa. I hope they all have a conversation, which is what recently happened in the LA County District Attorney's race. There was a very large field, and then it kind of narrowed down. And then some of those that were running ended up saying, you know what? I would like to be part of the team. You keep running for DA. I will be part of your team. So you ended up with a team of most of the people that you could vote for working together, which is not uncommon when you're talking about prosecutors. So You have Dietrich running, Dawana Perkins, Craig McLean, and Jim Baccarat. No, Bearcat. We're going with that. So you've got somebody who is a public defense attorney and 2 former prosecutors. Baccarat, Bearcat called the decision welcome and surprising news. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. Are any of you really surprised? Anyway, Norfolk, you have some options. You deserve options. You have some options. I'm curious to see how this goes. Bearcat said it's time to ring in a new era of competent investigations. I mean, cheers to that. It's time to ring in a new era of competent investigations and police accountability for misconduct in 2026 without the prospect of Morrissey securing another term. Well stated. Well stated. In an email statement, Dietrich said he believed Norfolk County needed a new, credible outside perspective to restore faith and confidence and build a DA's office defined by fairness, integrity, and professionalism. Going on to say, I wish DA Morrissey only the best as he moves on, and I'm excited about the opportunity for positive change and accountability in the DA's office. Did he follow that up with, always watching you, Wazowski. Always watching. Yes? Yes? No? Maybe? Because always watching you, Morrissey. Perkins said Morrissey's decision was the right one. Quote, now residents of Norfolk County have the opportunity to elect a qualified district attorney committed to the pursuit of justice, free from bias, conflict, and political entanglements. Fair. McLean could not be reached for comment. Morrissey did not throw his support behind any of the candidates currently running. If you were the candidates currently running, would you want Morrissey's support? I actually think it would be more of a hindrance. I think if you're Morrissey, if you're petty, you throw your support to somebody just to be shady. I'm sorry. Does this say that Morrissey has served in elected office since 1976? What? So you for real have never worked as a prosecutor. Is Morrissey like not even a lawyer? Is Morrissey just like fully just a politician? Wow. Okay. Imperial Girl said that's like old as dirt. Be gentle with us because this is close to when a lot of us were born. just be gentle. It's a very long time to be a politician and then become a district attorney when you don't know what the job entails. Yikes. I hate all of that. All right, well, I'm glad that Norfolk County has another option, and I'm happy for it. And let's see, Casey Cat said, can prosecutors not be a lawyer? Typical line prosecutors can't, but the elected district attorney, while it would be unusual, can be a politician in most jurisdictions. I don't agree. Because there's ethical boundaries of law that I don't think politicians are well versed in. But it does make that whole weird video make a lot more sense. That I don't want to see prosecutors looking at their job through the lens of a politician. I would like to see prosecutors look at their job through the lens of a prosecutor. Right? I was unaware that Morrissey had been an elected official since 1976. Oh, look, we have another, we have another statement. Eileen said, how can you be a DA if you're not an attorney? Because the district attorney is an elected position. If you are a district attorney, like you are a deputy district attorney, like Adam Lally, you have to meet the qualifications of the job to be hired and go to court. But the elected district attorney is the head of the office. Anyone work in, let's see, where does this happen a lot that it's really annoying? Hospitals. Who works in hospitals? Where your hospital admins have never worked the job? I mean, how many of you have worked in a field where the people in charge of making the decisions have never done that job? Right. It's management. It happens. Some of you are like higher education too. It happens. But it's frustrating. If you have worked the line job of a job and you have managers and higher ups making significant decisions that have never done the job, it's frustrating. This is the same as that. Literally the same. Same as that. All of you are like, yep. Same. Okay, so some of you are saying he got his JD. Wait, Morrissey got his JD from Suffolk in 1985, elected to public office in 1976. He might have gone to law school while he was an elected official. That doesn't mean he ever practiced. Strange. Either way, he's not running. He goes on to say, well, tell me more about what being a district attorney is. He goes on to say being district attorney is about pursuing justice with integrity and fairness. I mean, correct. Correct. He goes on to say, I'm incredibly proud of the meaningful work our office has accomplished, both in the courtroom and throughout the community. I am sure that the Norfolk DA's office has done some good work. I don't know if that's because of the attorneys that work there or because of Morrissey's leadership. I would lean towards the former, but the prosecutors, I think, did a great job in looking at the Walsh case. They also had little involvement from MSP, so maybe that helped him out a little bit. But that's a statement. He goes on to say, I'm incredibly proud of the meaningful work our office has accomplished, both in the courtroom and throughout the community. He went on to thank the law enforcement officials and community partners he has worked with as a district attorney, as well as the prosecutors and victim witness advocates in his office. I mean, I think those law enforcement officers, or at least the ones that were embedded within the Norfolk DA's office who had any connection to Proctor, are all still duck and covering. I mean, the ones that aren't on leave or have been transferred or fired or whatever. So this will be interesting. I'm gonna keep an eye because I'm curious. But Norfolk, you have some options. Go forth and take your options. District attorneys' elections are not often highly publicized. They are not the most highly attended elections. I have a feeling that we might see quite a significant voter turnout for the Norfolk elections because people are going to be ready to make their voices heard, I would suspect. I would suspect there are many in Norfolk County that are like, you know what? I have thoughts. So you guys have options. Yay, Norfolk, you have options. I'm happy for you. Woohoo. So I just, while we don't normally cover the political comings and goings of anyone, the Norfolk District Attorney's Office has been so much in our conversation that I didn't think we could pass up the moment to read that article together. And boy, was there some illuminating new information in there about District Attorney. Wait. How close are we to former District Attorney Michael Morrissey? We're close. Former District Attorney of Norfolk County, Michael Morrissey, and his choice to not run for re-election after holding various elected offices since 1976. Since 1976. That's a long time. It's a long time to hold elected office. So, Norfolk County, you've got some options. I hope you go out and hear them talk about what they would like to do with the office. And I'm sure that those in Norfolk County, when they have like candidate meetings, will go ask their prospective district attorneys what they're going to do about different cases, and go hear them talk, ask them questions. They, I'm sure, will be out in public and happy to answer your questions and happy to talk about their vision for the office. So if you're in Norfolk, go ask them. It's going to be busy. So with that, we're going to move on. Thank you for letting us take a brief side quest to talk about the decision. I think it was the only decision. The decision of soon-to-be former District Attorney Michael Morrissey to step down from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office and not seek re-election. I think that's not a surprise to anyone, truly. But I guess in my brain, I thought that had already happened. I thought that he was just done. But he wasn't done quite yet, it seems. So away we go. All right. We're going to take a turn into a more difficult case that we are going to cover. So for those of you that are familiar with the Tepe case and the arrest of Michael McKee, hang with me for a moment. For those of you that are not familiar, we're going to do a brief summary. I covered this on the podcast that was released yesterday. We'll do a brief summary today, and then we will go through more information. There are new charges in this case. There was a court appearance yesterday that I'm going to cover. There is some slightly different information in the new charging documents and the old charging documents. We might go over the old charging documents together just to look at them one versus the other. And then there was a pretty decent article that we'll go through with a little bit more information about the defendant in this case. Sound good? All right. Everybody with me? I think for this, where do we fly to? Do we fly to the crime scene, or do we fly to the location of the arrest? Do we fly to where we're going to court? I think that's the answer. We have to fly to where we're going to court, which means if we fly to where we're going to court, sorry, Ohio, we will be there another day. I think we have to fly to court, right? So if we're flying to where we go to court, then we're headed to Rockford, Illinois, home of Phantom Regiment. And then I'll stop doing that, I promise. It's embedded in my brain. I can't hear Rockford, Illinois without thinking of Phantom Regiment. And if you can, you have not spent enough time watching competitive band. All of you need to watch more DCI. And then it will be synonymous and stuck in your brain. Right, as it should be. Okay, are we ready? Let's go. I know. It was a quick one. I told you it was going to be. So, as we are looking at this case, a brief timeline. Emily, do you have your timeline pulled up? I thought I did. Hold on. Let me pull it up one more time. All of you are like, Rockford peaches. No, Pratches? That doesn't say peaches. Some of you say peaches. Oh, that one's typo. What are the Rockford peaches? Are we talking about baseball? Are we talking about food? I am unaware. See? I want to know all the thing, but thank you. Let me pull up my timeline because I thought I had it up and then I didn't. A League of Their Own is really from Rockford? I didn't know that. I need to go rewatch A League of Their Own. Fair enough. I didn't even realize that the Rockford Peaches were from A League of Their Own. No idea. I need to go back and watch again. Very cool. Sounds fantastic. Chat, I did not connect the two. Then again, I haven't watched A League of Their Own. Gosh, I don't know how long it's been. It's been a real long time. Very good. Thanks, chat. I was like, Are we talking about the Peaches? Some of you were saying Cheap Trick is also from Rockford. I had no idea. Yeah, it's been a really long time. The main points of A League of Their Own are there. The details, not so much. Okay. Ready? Yes? All right. Let's do a timeline of this case real quick for those of you that are new to this case. Also, we will link the podcast down below so that you have it because it's helpful. Where did I put my... No, they're not there. Hold on. I'm still looking for my timeline because I thought I linked it. I thought I had linked it and I had linked it in the wrong place. Are we shocked? No, we're not, but that's all right. All right. I wanted to make sure I didn't get any of the dates wrong because they're not ingrained in my memory just yet. So while we are talking about this case, some of you have probably heard this case because the victim, Spencer Tepe, was a dentist. And when this story initially broke, I had a lot of DMs asking me about the case. I had as much information as y'all did until we start getting into court process. Until there's an arrest, it's really hard to have solid information other than we have to wait for an arrest because police are investigating. But victim Spencer and Monique Tepe were found in their home deceased on December 30th, 2025. The friends and coworkers of Spencer Tepe and Monique Tepe had called for welfare checks. We learned later that the initial welfare check carried out by local police had gone to the wrong location. How did that happen? It seems from everything I've looked at that the officer drove to the wrong place and did a welfare check at the wrong place and was like, oh, nobody's answering the door. So there were a lot of questions around how do you do a welfare check and then somebody else ends up at the location later and is like, but I can hear children inside the house, when that's not what initial officer responding to experienced. And it's because that officer was at completely the wrong place. But the numerous 911 calls were made public, I think through a public records request. And there were like 4 numerous 911 calls from both coworkers at the dental practice where Spencer Tepe worked and from friends. Ultimately, it seems that it was a friend that had gotten into the residence and their front door had a door code. I don't know if the friend had a door code or got a door code from family members, but their friend got into the home and then unfortunately discovered Spencer Tepe, called back to 911, said that he had located a body, asked for help, got the kids out of the house. The 2 children were distressed but unharmed. They are 4 and 1 years old. And the dogs in the home were also unharmed. So the children and pets were taken out of the house. Law enforcement showed up and both Spencer and Monique Tepe were declared deceased at the scene. There was a lot of conversation around how strange it was that the dental office where Spencer Tepe worked was calling for a welfare check. I didn't find that weird. I thought it was honestly weird that people thought it was weird, but it didn't seem strange to me. We're looking at a dental office where he was it seemed dentists that was in the office that day were in between the holidays, which is often busy. The amount of people, raise your hand if you're people. Hi, I'm also people that are trying to get in to finish up any medical in their calendar year for their insurance is not shocking. Not all offices are open during this time period, but when they are, they're incredibly busy days of patients. And so when you are the dentist and you have patients and you have never been late for work, and he had an extensive commute, he had a 70+ mile commute to work. If you're running late, you have time on that call to drive or time on that drive to call. The office was deeply concerned that he had not contacted them, was not there, and they also could not get in touch with his wife, who I would also presume is probably his emergency contact. So they were concerned. I can understand. It's very unusual for a dentist to miss a patient and have no contact, and their wife had no contact. It's odd. It is odd. I'm not surprised they're surprised. And when the owner of the dental practice called, said he was on vacation out of state in Florida, said that it was incredibly out of character to have no contact, and asked for a welfare check. That if you can't get in touch with anyone at the home and it's 80 miles away, I don't know what else you do if you're worried about somebody. So there were numerous calls after that, including friends. I would suspect that the office probably started calling around to other members of the family if they had their contact information, and called around and started asking, has anyone heard from them? And that's when others became concerned. That is speculation on my part, but it would not surprise me if you cannot reach your doc that is supposed to be there, the doc's wife. If you know other family members, it wouldn't surprise me if you called and are like, hey, had you heard from them? This is unusual. Doesn't surprise me at all. So after four 911 calls in the morning, law enforcement finally arrives at the location after 10 a.m., finds the Tepes. They are both declared deceased. And then there's not a lot of information between that happening on December 30th and the arrest on January 10th. Law enforcement put out a video of somebody walking in the alley. If we want to rewatch that later, we can put out a video of individuals walking in the alley, or individual, very clearly individual walking in the alley near the home, and some Ring camera footage. And ultimately, in the probable cause affidavit, said that that video connected the individual to a car. The car is the defendant's car, and we don't know much more than that at this point. We will learn more if there is a motion for bail or bond. We'll hear more at a bail or bond hearing. If there is a preliminary hearing down the road, we will hear more at a preliminary hearing, and we will know what else, and we will see what else we learn about this case in the days to come. So since the arrest on January 10th over the weekend, the family held the funeral, and the timing, I imagine, was just a coincidence. The family had the funeral for the Tepes on January 11th, and then the first court date for Michael McKee was Monday the 12th, and we're going to take a look at that. What we know about Michael McKee is that he is the ex-husband of victim Monique Tepe, that they were married on August 22nd, 2015. They had no children in that marriage. She filed for divorce on May 2nd, 2017. I also have the divorce filing. I looked through the divorce filing. It was a pretty standard divorce filing. They were not married for a significantly long period of time. The defendant, Michael McKee, was in his medical residency at that time. He is a vascular surgeon, but he was in his medical residency at that time in Virginia. He kept the residence in Virginia. She kept the wedding ring and engagement ring. It was indicated that she had paid for those, which, if he was in medical school, also is not something that shocks me. He was paid just over $1,000 from her to handle mutual debt, and it was done. You take your stuff, I take my stuff. Here's a splitting of any debt in common, and that's it. The filings were pretty quick. So with that, the divorce finalized June 15th, 2017. So we're going to go to court, and then we are going to look at information that has come out since then. Sound good? All right. Sounds good. Let's see. This is Kooky said the 2025 divorce filing error were confirmed by the courthouse today. I'm going to go look for that because it is one of those lingering questions. There were a few things on the docket in 2025, but there are no filings with it. There were docketed items. So if that is in error, we'll take a look for it. before we wrap up today. I'll go look for that because it was one of those points of question, and errors in computer systems do happen. But it was one of those things where it's like, why is there anything on the record here? Also, there was another divorce proceeding with same name, same middle initial as Michael McKee. I don't have those filings. Could be completely coincidental, could not, but that could also cause confusion about the two. So, but if the court puts something out about that, I will go look for an official statement from the court. And if not, I will, it's something I'm curious about too, but you can't get all those records easily. And so I don't have the records from that filing to verify myself. It's just a docketed item, but it's an of note docketed item. And when you are looking at the arrest of an ex-husband and a divorce that's finalized in 2017, everybody's going to have questions. Everybody's going to have questions. Of course. Of course they're going to have questions. All right. So let's see. We are going to go to court first, and then we'll go from there. Sound good? All right. Let's see. The Jamie B asked about a 911 call. It was confirmed by family members that 911 call was not Monique Tepe. And there has been some concern or confusion about whether or not that call was even from that house, because if you are on a cell phone calling 911, there can be a radius there. That was something that was recovered by the media in a public records request and then put out by the media. But the family member said that was very much not Monique Tepe, and there are still questions about whether that was or was not even at that location. Let's see. Casey Cat, I'll go take a look. I talked about this in the podcast about him being remarried 15 days later. I have not seen those filings though, so I left open the possibility in the podcast. It could be someone with a very specific same name, because I don't have the dockets, but in the divorce docket, it does show a marriage for someone under the exact same name and middle initial from 15 days later. So we'll go on to see. All right. Let's go to court. And then just because I want to try to keep it linear so I don't get confused. And then we can go to Q&A at the end. Does that make sense? Yes. Great. All right, let me grab this hearing. As I said, this is a quick hearing. When we talked about this, let me pull up the arrest information first. Michael McKee was arrested on Saturday, so first court date was set on Monday. He was arrested in Illinois. He lives near Rockford, Illinois. I know that address is on a number of things. I've tried to redact it out of things. Somebody is going to live there in the future. So we're just going to leave it be. Let's see. Let's see. Winnebago County Sheriff's. This is the arrest information for Michael McKee. Booking on January 10th, 2026 at 11:57 a.m. That would be local time. And next court date, January 12th at 1:30, hold for out of state. So this first hearing is not a arraignment hearing. This first hearing is going to be an extradition hearing because he has been arrested out of state with where he's been charged. So that he was living in the greater Chicago area, was working, it seems, in the greater Chicago area, had done medical stints in other states. His license, like driver's license, is out of Nevada. And that is a lot of what we know at this point, but I'll go through the article that talks a little bit more about just his medical training, because that's one of the things that the media has found, because of course everyone's got questions. I've got questions. You've got questions. We've got questions. We've got questions. Everyone's got questions. All right. But for now, we are going to go to court. I should have swooped. It's been a minute since we've swooped. We should swoop. We should swoop and go to court, shouldn't we? We should definitely. It's been too long. Swoop. All right. Let's make sure our volume's up and let's go to court in Illinois. Yes. Chat, yes. To answer your question, yes. They just stick pins in potatoes and then they put them in courtrooms, and then those are the microphones. And there is not a whole lot we can do about it. It just is. It is so bad that even the closed captioning is not picking it up well, but the court asked the public defender to state their name. They did, and then they're asking the defendant his name.
Michael McKee, have you had a chance to speak with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's your position at this time?
Yes, at this time, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. McKee, I will assert his right to counsel. I will assert his right to remain silent. And Mr. McKee believes that the most expeditious manner in which he may defend himself against the charges pending in Ohio and to plead not guilty would be to waive his right to an extradition hearing and to have a governor's warrant and to agree to his immediate transportation to Ohio.
So I'm going to back that up real quick. The public defender said, I am asserting his right to counsel. I am asserting his right to remain silent. I have spoken to Mr. McKee, and he believes that it is in his best interest to agree to extradition to Ohio, to get a governor warrant to Ohio, to then go to Ohio to plead not guilty, because the charges are in Ohio. The homicides were in Ohio. So though he is arrested in Illinois, he has to go to Ohio because that is where he is charged.
Right to counsel. I will assert his right to remain silent. And Mr. McKee believes that the most expeditious manner in which he may defend himself against the charges pending in Ohio and to plead not guilty would be to waive his right to an extradition hearing and to have a governor's warrant and to agree to his immediate transportation to Ohio.
Understood. Thank you. We will set this.
So the court said, understood. Thank you. She said he agrees to an expeditious transfer to Ohio.
For 2 o'clock on Monday for status on the transfer.
The court set a hearing for a week out. So the court said, we're going to set a status hearing for Monday at 2 p.m. That is next Monday, to make sure that he was actually transferred. It's not as if they are going to take this defendant from court, put him on a bus, and take him to Ohio. It takes time for him to be transferred. So the court's going to set a status to make sure that's actually happened.
Thank you.
Anything else we can do today?
Anything else the court asked? No's all the way around. He is signing his warrant. We're going to take a look at that, or signing the waiver of extradition. So we'll take a look at that signed waiver of extradition in a moment. I'm holding on to a lot of your questions.
Thanks, everyone.
And that is the end. So that is the extradition hearing for Michael McKee. All right. That is the entirety of the extradition hearing that wasn't an extradition hearing because the defendant waived extradition. So when Michael McKee went to court in Illinois, which is where he was arrested, he, per his attorney, asserted his right to counsel, of course, his right to remain silent. His attorney said that he believed what was in his best interest was to waive the extradition proceedings for immediate transfer to Ohio so he can go to Ohio and plead not guilty to the charges against him. And the court said, is there anything else? No? Okay. So he will be extradited from Illinois to Ohio, where he will have an arraignment hearing put on calendar once he is transported. How long will that take? It will probably be sometime this week, but it might be at the end of the week. It will just depend. So I will keep an eye on that, and then he will be arraigned. But since the initial arrest warrant was filed for him on January 10th, there was a subsequent complaint filed on January 11th with new charges. So we're going to take a look at the January 10th complaint and warrant, and then we'll look at the January 11th complaint and warrant. And a number of you have asked in the chat, will he get a new lawyer? Yes, he'll get a new lawyer when he gets there. The lawyer who's working in Winnebago County, Illinois, is probably not licensed to practice in Ohio and is not hired by whichever county, I think Franklin County, is not hired by Franklin County, Ohio, to represent him there. So no, this is the attorney that was standing in to deal with the extradition. And that's it. Remember the defense attorney who was giving interviews from Pennsylvania on the Kohberger case? Same situation. Kohberger was arrested in Pennsylvania. There were extradition proceedings. Extradition was waived. And then he was transported to Idaho and then was assigned public defender there. Same circumstance. Same. So just like the Kohberger case, it happens when people are arrested outside of the state where they are in, because it is not a federal case. So jurisdiction is a little bit different than dealing with federal jurisdiction. When we're looking at something like, because examples help, like the Jen Shaw case. When we are looking at the Jen Shaw case, we are looking at a circumstance where she is charged with a federal crime and she is brought into court in Utah. They tell her that the charges are in New York and they tell her that she is going to be transported to New York. So that is why. Would he even qualify for a public defender? He was appointed counsel for this. Each state has different requirements and it really depends. Just because he was working as a surgeon does not mean he is necessarily net positive to put down a $100,000 to $500,000 plus retainer on private counsel. It really depends on the individual and the circumstance. So it just depends. But also for an extradition proceeding, the public defender might also bill at whatever their rate is. And again, this depends and varies by office and jurisdiction, and this was not my jurisdiction. But the public defender's office can be appointed and then bill you for their time. And they could go, if that's how it's set up in their jurisdiction, can go and say, hey, if you would like to use public defender services, this is what it looks like. They want to extradite you to Ohio. You just need an attorney for the hearing. If you agree to go to Ohio where the charges are against you, these are the charges against you. This is what that looks like. Do you want to work with the public defender's office? And they can do that. So it really depends if I'm going to hold on to this comment. My brain is reading comments at the same time. It really depends how the public defender's office in any given jurisdiction is set up, but in some jurisdictions they can bill for their services at whatever the rate is. So it doesn't mean that they are necessarily without other options. That makes sense. Pearl Snap said, EDB, what happens when a person accepts their right to speedy trial? Does the state even have time for that? Well, they have to. If a person does not waive their right for speedy trial, the state has to bring them to trial within that period of time. However, the state often has the option to refile charges and start everything over at the beginning if they run out of time. So it really just depends. It really just depends. It also is going to very much depend on how that is set up by jurisdiction and what the defense attorneys need and the time that the defense attorneys need. So it really depends. It really depends. So we're going to look at the initial complaint and documents, and then we are going to look at the subsequent complaint and documents. For those of you that have already seen the podcast, this is the one that we looked at the podcast, and then we are going to take a look at the new charges and talk a little bit about the differences between the two as we get into the charging of the defendant in this case. So nope, we want to do it that way. I've made it too big. It's normally not a complaint because I need all the help I can see with all of the things. All right, this is the January 10th, 2026, filed at 10:57 a.m. Remember, this is going to be filed in Columbus, Ohio, which is Columbus is going to be on Eastern Time. Chicago is going to be on Central Time. So for all of you, especially our international law nerds who are like, what are we doing? The Eastern Time is an hour off of the Central Time. So when you look at this being filed at 10:57 a.m. and you're like, Emily, we just looked at the arrest information and it said that he was like booked at 11:57 a.m. Isn't it awfully fast to have a warrant issued in Ohio at 10:57 a.m. and then have him arrested and booked at 11:57 a.m.? Yeah, that's like a 2-hour gap, not a 1-hour gap just because of time zones. Hopefully that helps. Yes, it's also fast. And yes, they would have been anticipating this. This wouldn't be new information to law enforcement in Illinois. They wouldn't have just been like, oh, here's a warrant, go get somebody. It would have been a much more considered operation. That makes sense. So complaint number 1, or complaint on count 1, is that the above named defendant at Franklin County, Columbus, Ohio, on or about the 30th day of December 2025 did knowingly cause the death of another, to wit, Monique Tepe, by means of shooting her with a firearm. This is charged under section 2903.02a, felony unclassified degree, and that is signed and dated and signed. It's a complaint signed for arrest warrant, which you can see at the bottom, that it is a complaint signed for arrest warrant to the clerk of court. And then it gives the information of the location of the crime and then the location of the defendant to go serve the arrest warrant with the general descriptors, height, weight, hair, eye color, and then the driver's license information, driver's license being out of Nevada, and date of birth. We then have the complaint on count 2 for victim Spencer Tepe, same language, by means of shooting with a firearm. This is under the same code section, 2903.02a. The same arrest warrant information sought. And then we have a brief statement in support of probable cause signed by who I am assuming is the lead investigator. It says on December 30th, 2025, that moved. At 9:57 a.m., Columbus Police Patrol officers were dispatched to check on the well-being of a Dr. Spencer Tepe who had not shown up for work. Upon arrival, officers arrived and found Dr. Tepe and his wife, Monique Tepe, deceased inside, suffering from gunshot wounds. 2 minor children were found inside the home unharmed. Columbus Fire Medic number 7 responded, pronounced both victims deceased at 10:11 a.m. Columbus Police Homicide Unit Team 2 was advised, responded, and initiated the investigation. Due to the subsequent investigation, detectives were able to identify a suspect through neighborhood video surveillance. This suspect was tracked to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicide and left shortly after the homicides. Detectives were able to identify this vehicle further and link it to Michael McKee. Detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of Mr. McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides. When I say that is a brief statement of probable cause, that is a brief statement of probable cause. There is going to be a lot more information there. And I imagine the video of the individual in the vicinity of the home at and around the time of the shooting and then the car is going to be more, right? So the other thing of note that I did not point out is they also, in this new information for us, is that the offense date and time, they listed the offense time at 3:52 a.m. Initially, police had put out a request for information and said that the window was between, I think, 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. So they narrowed down that timeline a little bit. So this is what was filed on January 10th under section 290302A. On January 11th, a new complaint was filed. So with a new complaint being filed, we're going to take a look at that new complaint because I have the amended complaint. Because we like court documents here, folks. We like the court documents. Court documents, helpful. Court documents, good. We want to see the documents, see the stamp, figure out what's going on. So let's take a look at the document from January 11th with the new charges in this case. So as you can see, filed January 11th, 2026 at 1:03. For all of you asking if Franklin County Municipal Court owns a document scanner from, 1815, yes. I don't know, but yes. So complaint on count 1 is at Franklin County, Columbus, Ohio, on or about the 30th day of December, 2025. The defendant did purposely, with prior calculation and design, cause the death of another, to wit, Monique Tepe, by means of shooting the victim multiple times with a firearm. Do we see the difference in language? It is a noticeable difference in language. We now have all of the first-degree murder language in here. So they have elevated this charge to a premeditated murder under section 2903.01A. So this changes the charge to the premeditated version. They also changed the way that they describe the death. This is now by means of shooting the victim multiple times with a firearm versus cause the death of another by means of shooting her with a firearm. So the premeditation is the difference in charge, which means this charge is now punishable by life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty, which is still available in Ohio, though through my cursory look at it, not regularly carried out in Ohio, but is something they can choose to pursue for this charge. So that's the material difference here, is that they have changed this to the first degree premeditated murder. All right. So taking a look, we can pull up the code in a second and see how they title this code language. Same time of 3:52 a.m. This is also the same change of charge for Spencer Tepe. Purposely, with prior calculation and design, cause the death of another, to wit, Spencer Tepe, by means of shooting the victim multiple times with a firearm under 2903.01A in Ohio. And then this, I do not have. If they included an additional probable cause statement, it would, I imagine, be the exact same copy of the other probable cause statement that we saw, because it is just a change in charge. So let me see. Let's pull up this code section real quick to answer any questions there before we move on to some of the information that we have. That is a really loud plane. You probably can't hear it. But loud. Loud. All right. Let me just grab the Ohio Penal Code real quick and get us to our proper code section. Isn't this easier with the internet? Yes, it is. If you know how to look for code sections, makes it much easier. All right. So we're just going to pull this up and take a look at it together so that you know what he is being charged with, if that makes sense. Some of you heard the plane. Fair. Let's see. All right. I'm trying to make this so you can see it easily on the screen, but that's going to require me moving this real quick. That's all right. We could do that. Let's just... Don't worry, I'm not going to cover my face, I promise. Emily, it's like the behind the scenes of the podcast. Yes, it is, because every website lays stuff out differently and it makes it difficult. It just is. But now we can all see it. Now we all know. All right. This is the code section that we are looking at for, as they title it, aggravated murder under 290301, which is what we are looking at here, 290301. A, no person shall purposely, with prior calculation and design, that's premeditation, cause the death of another or the unlawful termination of another's pregnancy. So that causes, that covers both paternal death and fetal death. So that is the code section that they're being charged with. I will regularly call it first-degree murder. Their specific title is aggravated murder. There are also other types of aggravated murder here that count even without premeditation. So subsection C, no person shall purposely cause the death of another who is under 13 years of age at the time of the commission of the offense. So that language does not require premeditation. That language specifies the age of the victim. So there are other code sections here that count for first degree or aggravated murder, which is their title of their code section, that are different circumstances that are not premeditated. So it is also first degree murder to, if the offender's specific purpose is to kill a law enforcement officer, if the victim at the time of the commission of the offense is engaged in the victim's duties, if, let's see what else is covered under here. Those are subsections 1 and 2 for law enforcement. No person shall cause the death of a first responder or military member. Let's see. This is escape. No person who is under detention as a result of having been found guilty or having pled guilty of a felony who breaks the detention shall purposely cause the death of another. So that is if you escape from custody and then someone is killed. The age of the victim, and then you've got other sections that count as aggravated murder. So these are first degree murder, and in the first degree murder here, you have, well, the potential sentencing now becomes either life without parole or death. And whether or not Ohio has a moratorium on death, or on imposing the death penalty, similar to California, one can be sentenced to it even if the state is not carrying out the death penalty in the state. So it will depend on what the prosecution chooses to do in that case. But this is their first-degree murder statute or aggravated murder statute. That is their premeditated murder. They have said premeditated murder. I imagine, based on what we know, they were tracking the car, driving across state lines, entering someone's home in the wee hours of the morning, and shooting to death 2 individuals in the home is really going to fall under that timeline of premeditation without us knowing any other facts. They are going to know more facts. This is not a circumstance where there's an interaction that explodes in a moment and goes off the rails, where you're going to have to talk about premeditation more or differently. This isn't that circumstance, especially if you have the driving from the Chicago area to the Columbus, Ohio area. So we'll see. Just for those of you that are curious, we can take a look at the other statute for what they were originally charged with, the 230902A. So we can go to section 02 real quick, because we've already got it pulled up if you're curious. So Emily, we're here to look at the law. Yeah, let's look at the law. So the original charges were under section 02, which they've just titled murder. It's without premeditation. So this would be your second degree charge, essentially, or what a lot of other areas would call second degree. Here, it's aggravated murder and then murder, period. Like literally, just period. This does not have the language for premeditation. It just says no person shall purposely cause the death of another. And then it talks about the punishment under section 292902. And under 292902, you have the aggravated murder, which gives you the sentencing on aggravated murder, which is death or imprisonment for life, which is going to be without parole. And then let's see, where is our second degree? Murder in violation of section 290302 shall be imprisoned for an indefinite term of 15 years to life. So that is the second term for what essentially is second degree murder. So does that make sense? Yeah? All right. So 15 years to life is second degree, which means you serve at least 15 years and then you're eligible for parole. On the aggravated murder, which I will default to calling first degree murder all of the time. On the first degree murder, it is life without parole or the death penalty, depending. So, HD asked Emily, if the person breaks into the victim's house and kills them, wouldn't that be premeditated? Not necessarily. There are circumstances of home invasions where you can clearly tell that they were breaking in to steal things and confronted by a person and then someone ends up being killed, there will be arguments that going into the house was not premeditated, depending on the fact scenario. If they intended to go into the house and take things and then a death happens, the argument would be that going into the house was not the premeditation. However, in a lot of cases, you would have a felony murder rule that would say, well, you're going in there to do a felony, and then the murder was subsequent to the felony, so you would end up in a different zone, but not necessarily would breaking into a house be the argument for premeditation. The difficult thing with premeditation is that it's very fact specific, and in this case, we don't have a lot of facts. We just don't have a lot of facts. What we do have is that the individual that was arrested was in possession of a vehicle that went from the Chicago area to the Columbus, Ohio area. They are alleging that this defendant entered the home of the Tepes, killed Monique and Spencer Tepe, left, got back into that car, and left. So the timing on that, especially if you are bringing a weapon with you, because this is a shooting case, the timing of that would indicate that that when you got into the car with the weapon, you had a destination. Also, if that destination was put into, like, what would law enforcement use? What was put into the GPS? What was put into the GPS of a phone? Had he been doing searches for where they lived? These types of digital footprints, did the defendant drive from their location directly to the house and then directly back? What was the path of travel? Those kinds of things are also going to come into play here. But yeah, traveling that far across state lines is definitely going to be argued. It's definitely going to be argued. So let's see. With that, we have the video that was originally released by law enforcement that we're going to take a quick look at. Let me find it real quick to pull up, and let me see where that is. Here we go. So I'm going to pull this up. This one is easier to see, but it has music on it that is not needed. And then we'll take a little bit more of a look at what we know about the defendant in this case. But this was what was released by law enforcement subsequent to the 911 calls being released and law enforcement asking for information. So now we know that this was one of the key pieces that they used to put this together. So I'm going to make myself a little small as we take a look at the video released by law enforcement when they were asking for more information regarding the Nest video. The information put out by law enforcement at the time was that this video was taken right in the alley behind the location here and was Nest footage, and they were asking the community for more information or if they recognized the individual on this video. So this is the video they have. It looks fairly snowy. This video is from December 30th. And it is clipped together of a couple different views of video of someone who seems, at least vis-a-vis the trash cans in the area, tall-ish. I mean, they are tall-ish. So they did not release all of the videos they have. So we do not know more than what we're seeing in this video, do we? Not really. All right. So with that, we are going to take a look at, let's see. Where are we going to take a look next? There was more we were going to do. We were going to take a look at the extradition consent. That's where we were going to look next. Let's take a look at the extradition consent because there's a lot that happened in this case. So where are we at today? The defendant, Michael McKee, is being extradited from Illinois to Ohio. They have changed the charges from essentially what is a second-degree murder to a first-degree murder, or as it is referred to in Ohio, an aggravated murder. That changes the potential punishment. As originally charged, the potential punishment there was an indeterminate life sentence of 15 years to life, so the possibility of parole. As charged now, that is a life without parole or death penalty sentence. Those are the options under the law. So it was elevated to an aggravated murder charge, which I will also call first-degree murder. So same. I'm using them synonymously because it depends on jurisdiction, how they title their murder sections. But this is how they are titling their murder section. Also, what we see in the new complaint document is that for both victims, it is indicated not only the premeditation, but also that both victims were shot multiple times. I had seen quite a lot of unhelpful, in my opinion, comment on the internet that Michael McKee, the defendant here, well, at the time it was unknown, that one of the victims had been shot a singular time. One of the victims had been shot multiple times. And there was a lot of speculation about it means this or it shows state of mind that. A, I don't think it's helpful. B, we don't have autopsy findings to know that. C, it was speculative information. It was not confirmed information. And beyond that, the takeaways that I think you can find from somebody being shot, however many times they're shot, is that it would seem to indicate somebody pulled a trigger of a gun that many times. That's really the only thing you can take away from that, is that somebody pulled a trigger multiple times. There are so many factors in cases, and the more cases you see, the more factors you see. It doesn't mean anything beyond that. And I'm not going to speculate beyond that because it's A, not helpful, and B, we don't have enough facts. What we have is a charging document that says both victims were shot multiple times. I think that's all that is needed to be known, but to say it just to say it, because it's frustrating to see. It's frustrating to see, for sure. All right, let's take a look at the extradition, or the waiver of extradition. In the Circuit Court of the 17th Judicial Circuit, we see the waiver of extradition. Demanding state. It's so judgy. It's just such judge. It's so judgy. I'm teasing. It's not that judgy. I cut myself off because I was trying not to swirl my my coffee at you, but it's demanding state. Ohio. The state that wants you to present the defendant to them, Ohio. So the demanding state, Ohio, pending charges, murder, defendant name, Michael D. McKee. This is the waiver. This is what his attorney would have gone over with him in court, which says that, well, we'll just go over it because, again, these are all, the copies are fantastic. You know what? I'm just glad we have them. I spilled. I'm just glad we have them. I'm truly just glad we have them. I'm glad I almost said coffee instead of copies. I'm glad we have them. But they're a little bit rough. This goes on to say in the waiver that the court has informed me in open court that I have the right to legal counsel, and that if I cannot hire legal counsel, I can request and receive appointed legal counsel free of charge to assist me in this matter. The court has informed me in open court that I have the right to an extradition process, including the issuance and service of a warrant of extradition, a governor's warrant, and that I have the right to challenge the legality of my arrest and to contest the extradition proceedings by filing a petition for habeas corpus relief. They would have told him this will take weeks, if not longer. So if you would like to do this, you can do this, but it does not start clocks ticking in other ways if you do this. The court has informed me in open court that I have the right to waive any challenge to my arrest and extradition proceedings, and that I may consent to return to the demanding state to face the charges against me. After consulting with counsel, I hereby exercise my right to waive any challenge to my arrest and extradition proceedings. Just as a note, this will not waive the right to challenge things like search incident to arrest, to say that they came and arrested me and they took my phone and they searched it and they didn't have the authority to search my phone. Things like that. Those signatures can still happen, but did I say signatures? It's because I saw somebody in the chat saying that signature is just Mark's. And I'm like, doctor, it's just doctor's signature. Also, he did have his hands belted to his waist chain, but he can still contest things incident to his arrest. He cannot challenge, it wasn't me. Like, you arrested the wrong guy. Like, you can't send me to Ohio. I'm not this person. So that is what he is waiving, the right to contest. you've got the wrong guy situation. And then they can make Ohio prove that it's the right guy. Instead, he's like, just send me to Ohio and we'll deal with it. So it goes on to say, after consulting with counsel, I hereby exercise my right to waive any challenge to my arrest and extradition proceedings and hereby consent to return to the demanding state to face charges against me. I understand that by exercising my right to waive extradition, I'm giving up the other rights listed above. No promises have been made to me. No threats have been made against me to give my voluntary return to the demanding state. Signed by the defendant, yesterday's date. Signed by the attorney yesterday, or the judge, and yesterday's date. So he has agreed to extradition. In most cases where I have seen extradition come up, most individuals have said, just unless we're talking about international extradition, whole different circumstance, just asterisks. I'm not talking about international extradition, but in extradition from state to state, most often I have seen people waive extradition are like, all the legal things I need to fight, the attorney that's going to work with me against these charges, all of that needs to happen in the other court. There's nothing I can do in this court. The only thing that the defendant could do in the court in Illinois is say, that is the wrong Michael McKee. This is not me. And don't send me to the other state because I'm the wrong guy. Everything else you are going to fight on a case happens in the other jurisdiction. Everything else. So it does not surprise me that he waived extradition, which we talked about a little bit in the podcast as well, whether or not he would waive extradition. The one question I have seen come up in the chat, and chat, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to tell you the truth consistently in this case. The question that you want me to answer, I cannot answer for you, and I'm sorry. Emily, they were divorced in 2017. What happened? I don't know. I don't know. Why did this happen? I don't know. Why did this defendant do this? I don't know. I don't know. It is an unusual fact scenario that we have been presented with in this case. It is not something that we are going to be able to just go, that. It is not. There is going to be a lot more information that we don't know. We will find that information as the court proceedings and processes go on, but also trying to apply, and I've said this in other cases, but trying to apply logic to a case to try to understand why somebody did something can be difficult. We just watched a full trial on, oh my God, my brain has already stopped, on Brian Walsh. And in the Brian Walsh case, it's like, what in the world? Like, what in the world? Same with Alec Murdaugh. What are you doing? In most of the murder cases we see, you look at the case and you're just like, why is this a choice? Why is this what happened? And what is going on? Unfortunately, the court system answers what happened, who did it happen to, who is the person that did it, and is that thing a crime? Courts do not help answer oftentimes the why. Who, what, where, when? And is that a crime? It's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. I understand how frustrating it is. We might learn more about somebody's state of mind as we get further on into this case. We've learned more, like in the Corey Richins case. We've learned a lot more in the Corey Richins case. Like, still, why is that the answer? Don't know. But we've learned a lot more circumstance in the Corey Richins case, and you're looking at the circumstance and going, there's a lot going on there. We don't have that much information here. And I don't know if this defendant is going to fight bond once they're extradited. because if they're fighting bond, it's really unlikely the court's going to say, yeah, you can go back to Chicago. So going through a full like bond hearing on a double murder case seems unlikely because you have no ties with the community. So it's going to be tough. So we will probably learn a lot more about the how, the when, and the who. But it's going to take a while before we see anything that points to why. And the first thing law enforcement is looking at is the how and the who. So I know it's frustrating. I've seen a lot of questions in the chat, and the desire for that answer can fuel a lot of speculation. I agree with you that you look at this case and you're like, there's a lot of information missing. And I wish I knew more. I agree with you. There's a lot of information missing and I wish I knew more. Agreed. I absolutely agree with you, chat. However, I've also done this a long time, and though I don't always like it, I am much more settled with, okay, well, those are the questions. I'm going to wait and see if they're answered. Now, that approach sometimes bites me right in the ass, because if you go back and watch the earliest coverage of the Karen Reed case, I think I say over and over and over again, maybe at the end of this trial, we'll understand more. And then we got to the end of the Karen Reed case, and I was like, fuck, where are the answers? I wanted to learn more. I have more questions. Damn it. I have more questions. I have a lot more questions. I have no answers. Shit. It's real frustrating. I get real frustrated too. All right. This article that we're going to take a look at, on reader mode, the second we get past the headlines, we're going to reader mode because there are so many ads. Doctor Who said both Karen Reed trials. Shit. Exactly. You get to it and you're just like, what? But also, that's not the question. We were not given the question really in the Karen Reed case of answering what happened to John O'Keefe. The question in the Karen Reed case was, what, if anything, did Karen Reed do? And the jury answered that with, she drank and drove. So there's that, I guess. But it is frustrating. All right. The headline here is vascular surgeon charged with murder of ex-wife, new husband. What to know about Michael McKee? So we are going to reader mode. Wait, where did my reader mode go? Oh, Emily. I had my reader mode. Is it not installed? My reader mode is not installed. All right, we're going to have to do the best we can dodging advertisements. Hang with me, chat. Emily, put it on your to-do list immediately. I'm putting it on my to-do list immediately. I'm annoyed at myself. You lost it for yourself. I did. All right. Less than 2 years, this is coming from USA Today. Less than 2 years after saying I do on his wedding day, Michael David McKee's marriage was over. Yes, they filed for divorce, or she filed for divorce. The high-achieving vascular surgeon who most recently lived in Chicago wed Monique. I do not want to get the victim's last name wrong. It is now Tepe, but Sabertruski. In his home state of Ohio on August 22nd, 2015. They got divorced in May 2017. She filed for divorce in May 2017. The divorce was finalized in June of 2017. And they say, according to court records reviewed by USA Today, I also reviewed them. We've talked about it. Now Michael McKee is being charged with murder in the shooting deaths of both Michelle and her second husband of nearly 5 years. In a case that has captured national headlines for its heart-wrenching details. Yes, the Tepes were found shot dead in their home on December 30th. We're going to zoom to what we know about the defendant. When Columbus police announced the Tepes had been killed, they initially provided no details about who might be responsible or what the motive might be, sending fear throughout the community. I can imagine when there are no answers, it is frustrating. Now they say they believe McKee is responsible. McKee's court-appointed public defender, Carrie Poirier, said in an Illinois court on Monday, January 12th, that he plans to plead not guilty and remain silent. We watched it together. Let's see. This goes on to say, what do we know about Michael David McKee, a vascular surgeon most recently living in Chicago and working at a medical center in nearby Rockford? McKee excelled in both sports and academics in his hometown of Zanesville. They say it's a charming small town just east of Columbus. McKee began making headlines in local papers as a first grader. We're not going that far back. Can we just go with where he was living to do his medical stuff? Because I'm okay. We don't need to know what he was doing when he was 13. It's fine. Here we go. We'll pick up with the Ohio State University. McKee went on to Ohioans. I am inserting the Ohio State in here. I'm putting it in because it's not in the article. We're just fixing it for you because I have been told that it is the Ohio State University. It must be the Ohio State University, and it is offensive to not use the Ohio State University. I can see which of you are Michigan fans in the chat already. McKee went on to the Ohio State University, studying at the College of Medicine and making honor roll. Look, I believe that the victims also went to the Ohio State University. I think everyone involved all went to Ohio State, the Ohio State. They say that he graduated, obtained his medical license in Ohio in 2014. So he finished medical school in 2014. He and the victim were married in 2015. They were divorced in 2017. So he, during the time of the marriage, would have been in, is it residency right after med school residency, then fellowship? I think that's the proper order to the best of my memory. They go on to say that McKee married the victim in this case, Monique Tepe, her maiden name Sabatruski, the following year. After the couple's divorce was finalized in 2017, medical board records obtained by USA Today show that McKee began bouncing around other states. Not uncommon, by the way. So thank you, IPI, Med School Residency Fellowship. I thought so. I just wanted to make sure I got it correct. It's not unusual. I don't know. Somehow the bouncing around sounds nefarious in some way. It's like, okay, so he went to different places to do his residency and then his fellowship. That's incredibly common. That's what you do. That's how that works, to my understanding. So they go on to say that he obtained his medical license in Virginia in 2017. He completed his residency at Virginia Tech. He obtained a license to practice in both California and Maryland in 2022, Nevada in 2023. I do not know where he did his fellowship or if he did multiple fellowships. It's possible for surgery, and then I imagine vascular surgery has additional things that you would be doing. He got his license to practice in his most recent residence of Illinois in 2024. So interesting to me, the timing that he has not been back in Illinois all that long. I don't know if it matters at all, but of note. Let's see. It goes on to say McKee and Monique did not have children together. We saw that in the divorce case as well. It goes on to say on December 30th at 9:03 a.m., Columbus police got a call from Spencer Tepe's colleague, who was, the owner of the dental practice, who was concerned that Tepe did not come into work and the office could not reach him or his wife. according to recordings obtained via public records request from the Columbus Dispatch. I figured those were from public records request and that the media had not put those out. We listened to edited versions of those 911 calls. Chat, I love you. I love being here with you. I love covering these cases. What I am not always going to do is go through the heartbreaking 911 call with the kids crying in the house. It's not helpful for y'all, for me to just sit and cry and be sad. And also the information we need about the case can be gleaned without how just devastating it is as the person who finds the victims in their home is trying to get the kids out of the home. We went through the edited version so you can hear what they say. Part of the reason I played that is because I had seen some really unhelpful speculation about those that were calling 911 on the internet. So the friends and family seemed concerned. I don't think that's weird. They go on to say at 9:22 a.m., an officer reported there was no answer at the door based on records, but Columbus police have since said that the officer went to the wrong home. Correct. Let's see. The statement provided to USA Today by the family says, quote, they were extraordinary people whose lives were filled with love, joy, and deep connections to others. We are heartbroken beyond words. They describe the 37-year-old Spencer as a devoted and proud father, a loving partner, a friend to everyone he met, and 39-year-old Monique as a loving, patient, and joyful mother whose warmth defined her. They go on to say what led to the arrest, which is the neighborhood video, connecting it back to the vehicle, which we saw. And let's see if there's anything else. We looked at court on Monday. He has been charged with 2 counts of aggravated / first degree murder with premeditation in Franklin County Municipal Court. Let's see. Family members and colleagues of the McKees could either not be reached for comment or decline to comment. Look, here's a recent statement from the victims' families. In a statement to USA Today, the Tepe's family stated that McKee's arrest represents an important step towards justice for Monique and Spencer. I think this was from the 10th because we went over this already. Nothing can undo the devastating loss of 2 lives taken far too soon, but we are grateful to the City of Columbus Police Department, its investigators, and assisting law enforcement community whose tireless efforts helped to capture the person involved. As this case proceeds, we trust the justice system to hold the person responsible fully accountable. They added that Monique and Spencer remain at the center of our hearts, and we carry forward their love, and we surround and protect the 2 children they leave behind. We will continue to honor their lives and the light that they brought into this world. And that is the end of that article from USA Today. That was the statement that we went over from the 10th that was released the day before the funeral that was on the 11th. What I want to do is pull up the docket and see if the court, because a number of you have said that the court confirmed that the 2025 docketed entries were docketed in error. And again, the docketed entries from 2025 seemed kind of out of place. And a number of you have said that the court has clarified that. So I want to see if they actually took those off of the docket. So we're going to go take a look at the docket. Real quick, if you'll allow me to, in real time. It's so much easier when we don't do breaking stories because they don't move as fast. But we're going to go look in real time before we answer some questions. If that works for y'all. Hopefully it does. It works for me. I guess it's what matters. Emily, do you want to? Yes, I'm curious. I'm just curious. But I also understand that for friends, family, community, coworkers, individual who also know the defendant, it is probably also a lot to process. We have not seen any statements of somebody coming out being like, I was concerned. We have not seen any statements of people coming out saying that the Tepes were concerned. They might share that later. They might not. But I imagine when they say that friends and family of the defendant have not said anything, I imagine they are also stunned. Especially when you look at coworkers, I imagine coworkers are stunned. I can't imagine. They're like, this is just a doc that I work. What are you even talking about? So I'm not surprised that there aren't statements. People are probably still processing that they are shocked. So it is somewhat inexplicable, which is difficult. And if there were things going on that we are not aware of, always possible, and we learn those, then we'll go from there. But at this point, based on the information we have, it seems that everyone is still in shock, which does not surprise me, because it is shocking. All right, let me grab the docket real quick from the divorce case and take a look, because I'm curious if that was corrected, is corrected, if there's anything we can see that was or is corrected, if that makes sense. Let's see. Emily, we need, yes, we need. So let's see. I want to make sure I grab the proper file real quick. All right, let's take a look at this real quick, because it has not been updated, though I've seen a number of you saying that the court confirmed that these were improperly docketed. So it is, I'm going to look for that as well. But the information we can get from the docket, we will take a look. Do we have access to the documents that were filed? No. Can I request those? Yes, and I will. But I will also take a look at what we can kind of glean from what's in the court, because I'm trying to just embiggen these. We have all the normal stuff that happens in 2017, 2018, just the case is closed out. And then we have a random continuance and copies of notice hearing, and then something stricken from the record. So these are all like a day or two, and a continuance that's continuing nothing is random. It is. What is it continuing? Why is there a hearing set? There wouldn't be a custody trial. It's worth noting that this was on the docket, but it's also worth noting that it says very clearly the action has been stricken, and that it was continuing something that wouldn't have existed, because this is very clearly a divorce with no children. So if this was custody of a pet, which can happen, it would have been dealt with in 2017. So it's worth noting that it was on the record or on the docket, but it's also worth noting that it doesn't make a ton of sense. But they do have the names of the parties on the copy of hearing set and notice, but they also have it then stricken. So strike the scheduled date, and then there's nothing following up. So yes, could entirely be misfiled, because there's nothing to continue, and there's no reason that there would be a custody trial, and there's no reason custody would be reopened. So yeah, it's a number of you have said in the chat that the court has confirmed that this was in error. I will look for where that's reported. That would not surprise me that it's a docketing error, because there's nothing to continue. And so if you enter the case number, these case numbers go by year. If you enter the first part wrong or any of the other part wrong, you can end up on the wrong docket for the wrong case. So yes, it could very easily be a Scribner's error. Sure, absolutely could. And because we don't have the document, if we had the document that showed the continuance here, there is no document. But if we had the continuance document, it would have the parties on the document, and it would have the case number on the document, and then you could see if this document was attributed to the right case or the wrong case. Also, this magistrate is not the magistrate that was handling this case. Do judges change? Yes. Can judges change? Yes. But this was assigned to Judge Elizabeth Gill, and then this hearing was set in front of a different magistrate. So, on the were things going on in the divorce, worth questioning, worth looking at, worth knowing about, could be nothing. Absolutely. So, this continuance was stricken. And then the scheduled date was stricken. So, I wouldn't be surprised if those were just, as a number of you have said, that those were improperly put. So the divorce, in the divorce files had no mention of custody of anything. So it would have been handled in 2017. If there was custody of like a pet, that would have been handled in 2017 on the dockets. I have been through that record, and there is no mention of anything else that could have been custody. So it could have very easily just been the wrong case number and misattributed, and that's why the action was stricken off the record. This would have never been looked at if this case hadn't happened. So, Scrivener's error, probably. Yeah, it's probably just a typo on the numbers. I mean, if you flip two of the numbers at the end of a case number around, you're going to end up in the wrong place. So if you flip the 6 and the 9 on there and do 1961 or 1691, it can get attributed to the wrong place. A number of you are asking me about the other things on this docket. I will mention them just briefly because there's a lot of questions about it. All of the applied fees here, all of the applied fees are just standard fees. They are fees that are apportioned out for the case. All of them are standard applied fees. Every single one. These are typical court and case fees. So everything you see where it says applied fees are standard court fees in every case. So there is a legal aid fee. A lawyer was hired here. They weren't using legal aid, but there was a legal aid fee, a project fee, a domestic violence shelter fee, a child abuse fee, a computerized research legal fee, a daily reporter fee, a clerk fee. Those are court fees. All of those are just standard court fees. They apply to every case. That is where they go. So if there's court fees of whatever the amount is, $100, then the way that $100 gets portioned out is through each one. And those are applied to every single case. So every time you come through court, if you have a court fee, $32 is going to go to a domestic violence shelter fee under HB 335. So whoever passed HB 335 takes a portion or will take a portion of every court fee and put it towards supporting domestic violence shelters. Astronautical said, so nothing out of the ordinary, nothing out of the ordinary. These are typical fees that are going to be applied in every single case. It is nothing specific to this case. It is nothing nefarious. It is nothing factually supported. It is court fees. So court fees will fund all kinds of things depending on the jurisdiction. I imagine that when you look at this outside of the state, you're like, that's a lot of court fees. But if you've ever been through the court system and paid all of the court fees, there's a lot of court fees. And everything in this divorce went through a private judge, so it went through expeditiously, but it was all just written out of what property goes where and stamped. It was minimal. The standard mutual restraining order is exactly that. It is a standard mutual restraining order that says you can't access the bank accounts of the other person. You can't harass the other person. And it's exactly that. It is standard. You're going to see it in every case. So that's it. And then the case was filed in May. The final divorce decree was filed on June 16th, and then the case was terminated because it was done. And then they refunded the deposit on fees that were not used, and that was it. Done. And the case was done. So nothing, there is nothing remarkable on the family law case. It's just we got married. We were married for a little bit. You took what you came in with. I took what I came in with, and we're done. Just stamp. Vanilla Bean said, what's a private judge? Like a mediator. So someone else who can handle the case because you can't get back on the court document. It speeds things up quite a bit. And the private judge signed off on it, and it went back to the record, and the judge is like, great, you've reached a divorce decree. Done. You've reached a divorce decree. Done. We're all done. And that's it. And then it was stamped and done. So from what we have covered today, just to summarize, before we move on to questions and take a look and see, some of you are saying there's a new statement by the family. I will take a look for that as we get into questions, but we're going to get into questions because we have lots more to cover tomorrow. So before we do that, let's just try to summarize where we're at the end of the day. I think it's where we kind of were at the beginning of the day too, but in the double homicide of Monique and Spencer Tepe, the ex-husband of Monique Tepe was arrested on Saturday, January 10th, was in court on Monday, January 12th in Ohio, not Ohio, my things are incorrect, was arrested on January 10th in Illinois, went to court on January 12th in Illinois and waived extradition proceedings and agreed to be forthwith transferred back to Ohio to then be arraigned and face the charges against him. On January 11th, new charges were filed. Originally, this was filed as a murder, which is akin to a second-degree murder, not a premeditated murder. That punishment would have been 15 years to life. On the 11th, they filed elevated charges for both victims that were premeditated murder, indicated that both victims were shot multiple times and killed subsequent to that charge. The elevated aggravated murder charge, which is synonymous with a first-degree murder charge, is a charge that carries the potential of life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty in that case. It's going to depend on what the prosecution choose to pursue. I imagine that we will see that decision made substantially down the road. What happens next? Well, it's going to take time for transportation from Illinois to Ohio. Then there will be an arraignment. At the arraignment, we will see, I imagine, the defendant enter a plea of not guilty. However, if the defendant is interested in hiring private counsel, you can also see the circumstances where the public defender stands in for the arraignment and says, we need to put this over. The defendant is interested in hiring private counsel, or you can have the case arraigned and set it for bail and bond hearing, or you can have it arraigned, set for preliminary hearing. It just depends on what they choose to do. So I imagine we will see an arraignment on this case, maybe at the end of this week, maybe at the beginning of next week, and then we will see what the next court dates will be from there. What we can see after arraignment are, well, they're going to undergo the discovery process, but if there is a bond or bail hearing, we will hear more facts about the case and how they know this defendant is the defendant, why they think he's a risk to the community or a flight risk. and determine whether or not there will be bond or bail, or this might stay a no bail case, which I imagine is what Ohio would do on an LWOP case. Most jurisdictions have no bail on life without parole cases as kind of the default. So from there, we would likely see a preliminary hearing set. Again, we saw that in the Koberger case, and then they went grand jury and we never saw a preliminary hearing. But if they do a preliminary hearing, then we will learn more facts about the case as it makes its way towards a trial date, probably next year at the soonest. So from here, it is going to be a slower process. I don't know how much more information we will see outside of court, but we will see information within the court process as this case moves forward. I agree with you. There are a lot of questions about why. Absolutely agree. We're not going to have answers to those questions at this point. The things we will see answers to more quickly are things like how and what happened. We are still pending final result on an autopsy, but given what was pled in the recent complaint, I imagine what we will see is that it is a manner of death, homicide, cause of death, gunshot wounds, or multiple gunshot wounds. We might have more information from an autopsy down the road. We will probably hear more information about the probable cause connecting the defendant to not only the car, the location, and the crime. And then we will go from there. So it's a case I'm going to keep following. I know you have a lot of questions. I'm going to answer them, hopefully now. Or I'm just going to say, good question, I don't know. So we'll see. Maybe. All right. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Miguelina. I appreciate it. Miguelina grabbed a link for me. Let me go and refresh this so I see it. All right, I appreciate it. So, Miguelina highlighted and grabbed I need to reinstall my other reader mode because it seems that I have forgotten. Well, it hadn't come up. We've been watching court all last week, but all of the things that pop up on screen are challenging. So the statement that Chat was bringing up today, because Chat are the best research attorneys on the planet. When was this published? Because when I was looking at this case this morning before we went live, I had not seen this just yet. So I'm glad you guys pointed it out. I should have, because this is from last night? I'm surprised it didn't come up. All right. Either way, thank you, Chat. You guys are the best. Let's take a look at a new statement from Spencer's family that says, Spencer Tepe's family quickly believed wife's ex involved in killing. It does not surprise me when you are looking at a circumstance that is a targeted case. Emily, why do you say that? Well, you have, and police said they saw no obvious signs of forced entry, which means no doors kicked down or windows shattered. But you have a case that doesn't appear to be a burglary, that doesn't appear to be a confrontation outside of a home, that does not appear to have other things going on in the neighborhood. So it appears initially more targeted. And with that, you are immediately going to start looking at circles of who is connected to both individuals. Like in the Murdaugh case. Who's going on to Alec Murdaugh's property randomly out in the middle of nowhere where it is absolutely as dark as a cave and in the middle of their family property. You're starting to look at circles of who is connected. And so I'm not surprised that the family is wondering who is in these circles of who's connected. So let's take a look at what the family had to say. And this is Rob is the family member that has provided some of those beautiful wedding photos to the media. And I think is also the one who posted the wedding video Not recently, but closer in time to when it happened. The article says that Spencer Tepe's brother-in-law said the family quickly believed that the ex-husband of Spencer's wife had something to do with the killing of the married couple. NBC News reported, and I'll go find what NBC said later, because I am just fatigued on the media being like, oh, our reporting is that this other outlet reported. So we'll find it from NBC too and post that down below when I find it. It's harder to get closer to primary sources in real time, but we'll find where NBC reported that as well. Rob, Spencer's brother-in-law, said that Michael David McKee, Monique Tepe's ex-husband, quote, was an emotionally abusive person when they were together. That is all I know. Okay. So that is more information from the family. I don't think we've heard anything directly from Monique's family. So we are hearing what either Monique or Spencer told to their brother-in-law. It goes on to say why it matters. Police in Columbus, Ohio found 37-year-old Spencer and his wife, 39-year-old Monique, suffering from gunshot wounds. Deceased from gunshot wounds at their home on December 30th. Let's see if there's anything else that is new in this case other than advertisements. No, this is, let's see. Nope, this is just additional of what we've already seen. So, all right. We will see what happens when Michael McKee is transported. I'm going to get to some more of your questions, and then we're done with this case for this day. So let's get to some more questions, shall we? I think we shall. All right. Jammy Mama said, in my law office management class for my paralegal program this week, one of our assignments dealt with lawyers misusing money in a client trust account. I referenced Murdaugh and Girardi. I heard Emily yelling in my head the whole time. Right? I'm glad that what we talk about in court together here on stream plays into real life, because those are some really big examples of misuse of client funds, especially the one where Girardi took the money directly out of the client settlement funds and bought earrings with it. One of the wildest things I've ever seen. Just wild. Let's see. Just Jay said, didn't Daryl Brooks ask for a speedy trial? He said that a lot. He said a lot of things a lot, but also wasn't prepared for trial. But I think that the Brooks case went to trial pretty close in time to his speedy trial rights, as best as I remember. Michelle said, off-topic question, can you please let me know what e-tablet you're using? I'm looking for one that feels like real paper. I have tactile needs. I use the Supernote. I quite like the Supernote. Of the different e-writer solutions I have used, it is the one I like the best, mostly because I really like the nib on the pens that they use. It's a ceramic nib, so it has a really nice feel. There are tons of videos on the internet of people who are much more tuned in to the e-writer space than I am that have compared quite a lot the Remarkable to the Supernote, like vis-a-vis putting a cover on an iPad. I found that to be the most slippery and the one that worked the least for me, because I was doing a lot of writing and not as much drawing. So it's going to depend on your needs, what you're using it for. I also like that the Supernote will sync to your computer or what have you without needing a subscription, which the Remarkable needs a subscription for, which just fundamentally annoyed me. MX Firebird's Child asked, Emily, when does terrible court audio become an ADA issue? For us, it really doesn't. I mean, it's annoying to me, quite. But in court, they have ways to accommodate for hearing, because the court audio that's terrible is normally the audio that's fed out on stream. And the accommodation for that is that the courtroom is open and available for people to come in. And they do have hearing devices for in court. So if you're a juror in court, they do have assisted listening devices if needed. So I've also found that what it sounds like inside the courtroom and on stream are two different things. And that's normally because by the time they are recording something, it depends where the judge allows the camera, but it is often one camera with a microphone on camera, not close to where the speakers are, behind where the speakers are, and then they are overgaining the microphone to try to hear anything in court because it's not mic'd for it. When you have a courtroom that is set up for trial and they have mic'd it, it tends to be a lot better. But the court system generally sees streaming as a courtesy because the courts are open and they would say you could come in. But yes, I agree that it's frustrating. It's why we always look for feeds or put videos up so we can put closed captioning on them. It is a solution or a problem that we are constantly trying to solve as to how we can improve it on our end and how can we make sure that we have closed caption available on our end, because it's really frustrating. Really, really frustrating. Hazel said, relieved, surprised that someone cold enough to kill two people left the kids and pets physically unharmed other than leaving them in a locked house. I understand, Hazel. I am not as surprised. We're assuming that the person knew that there were kids in the home. I am optimistic and hopeful that the kids were in separate room or rooms, depending, and that the pets were not free roaming in the house and were also somewhere where they were safe and taken care of, or safe and away from this. But you saw this in the Adelson case most recently when, was it Sigfredo Garcia that was testifying that when they went up to Tallahassee the first time and they were going to murder Dan Markel, they didn't because he was with his kids. They were like, no, we're not killing him in front of his kids. So it is hard to logic things that are outside of our frames of logic and reference, but it does not surprise me based on all the cases I've seen that people have a very different line when it comes to kids, especially if one or both of the victims were the target and the kids were not witnesses to that. They were left. I'm glad they were. It's just incredibly sad. Just incredibly sad. So yeah, I'm glad that the family has the kids. But it is incredibly sad. So Tiffany asked in the chat, was he currently married? I have not seen any current marital records. I had seen Casey Katz at WGN reported that McKee was married 15 days after the divorce was finalized, but it lasted less than a year. That divorce, on that second set of divorce records that I was talking about, the divorce was filed in 2022. However, that doesn't mean people can't be separated and just not go through with filing for divorce and then later be like, oh yeah, we need to get that done. So I don't know. I hope that there's more information, but there may or may not be. It was Luis Rivera. Thank you. Not Sigfredo Garcia. Thank you, CW. The Crystal Star said, what about restraining orders? The restraining orders on the divorce that were the mutual, like, don't access other people's bank accounts, don't harass the other person, would have expired quite a while ago. Kookie, thank you again for this. We were talking about this earlier, that the court confirmed the error about the filings. They were confusing. And again, it never would have come up if this case hadn't come up. So let's see. Anna said 1976, finally a reason for the Reed case. It's just Morrissey, the career politician, it seems. The singer Morrissey would like to be left out of this conversation. MC Sapp said, bloop, appreciate you in this community. I do too. I love this community and I love getting to talk about cases with you guys. Some of the cases are difficult in different ways than others. This case is, there's just a lot unknown. And so it's hard to provide much useful information. I hope the clarity on what the records say, what they don't say, what is not, and what is unknown is helpful. But I am with you in that I want to know more too. It's hard. Boyo said, love earning my EDB MQTs. Snacks and bubbles for everyone. Cheers. We've gotten a fair few miles this month already. Look at us. So, my cat is cuter than you said, hey y'all, I'm taking my first English solicitor's qualifying exam this week. Wish me luck. Good luck. You've got this. The Resa said 2022, no, 2018 was the last action. We were talking about the second divorce, not the divorce from McKee and Tepe. There is a second divorce of an individual named Michael D. McKee. There is a second subsequent marriage. That marriage date was listed as 15 days later, and that divorce date was listed in 2022. Different filing, for sure. So let's see. Peggy, I did not see this, and I do not, given the time of mourning, I would imagine the kids were in a separate room. I would not imagine that they would have been moved to another room. So we will see as facts come out, but I have not heard anything from law enforcement about that. And if there's nothing from law enforcement about that, I am letting it go. Loudmouse said, Emily, who will search McKee's apartment? Ohio, Illinois, FBI. Not FBI. It would be likely local PD where the apartment is with the lead investigator, because I imagine they would have had a search warrant at the same time they had an arrest warrant. And the lead investigator, I would imagine, would have been on site because they would have had time to do that. So, Queen of Raven said, I thought it was a different Michael McKee. I am not convinced that is a second Michael McKee, because it is all the same initials, but without all the filings, which I do not have yet. It is hard to confirm. So it could be a coincidence. I'm not going to say it's not, and I'm not going to say that it is, though chat has indicated that a few other news outlets have reported that it is one and the same. I have not seen the docket yet. So I have not seen the docket yet on those. But when we do, we will clear it up. It is a point of question. So I'm leaving it as a point of question. Janet said there are a lot of Michael McKees. True, but there are not a lot of Michael D. McKees. So it was narrowed down with the middle name, but people have the same middle name. So we will see. Lexi said, nobody I'd rather be baby nap trapped with. I love it. I miss the baby nap traps. I love the cat traps though. We deal with the cat traps, and I appreciate the cat traps. So again, it is one of the things that I will note that I have a question at, or note that I have a question of, and continue to dial in the information of. So let's see. Juniper said it's giving never had a real job. I mean, right, with Morrissey. Shannon asked, Emily, was Reed's case dismissed with prejudice? If we're talking about the Reed criminal case, no, because it was an acquittal. So it was just an acquittal. So an acquittal, you can't refile by operation of law, but it was just an acquittal. If there's a whole bunch of civil cases, and I haven't seen, I think it would have been quite a lot of news on those. And the civil cases, when I checked them earlier this week, were all still underway. Kara said, that's my opinion on the soundboard. It's on the soundboard.
That's my opinion.
We've used it quite a bit. It is there. Amy's bucket list said in Ohio, even the judges are elected, which is not unusual. A lot of places judges are elected, even like Superior Court judges are elected, but they do have to be attorneys to be elected. So they do have to be They do have to be elected. So Kathy at Oz said he will be rehomed. Right? I'm glad that he has rehomed himself. I think it was the best thing to save himself the embarrassment at this point. It's time to retire. Wesley Verendiva. I hope I got that correct. The Rendiva, I might have put spaces in the wrong place. I apologize. Emily, sorry for the off topic. I wanted to say thank you for the last few months have been hard. We had to put down my giant pondered Brucey Pyrenees in the picture. It's a gorgeous picture. You and the Lawnards have helped keep me emotionally okay. The loss of a pet is incredibly difficult, and I am sorry for that. There are regularly Lawnards in here watching who had watched with their Ponards and have lost their Ponards. It is a unique kind of grief, losing a Ponard. It's really tough. So absolutely tough. Let's see. I'm going to answer a few more questions and then we are going to go. Tara, I'll take a look. A lot of you are saying AJ put out a statement on Morrissey. I'll take a look. I mean, I imagine AJ's statement was like, good, fuck that guy, print that. Wait a second. No, good, fuck that guy, print that. There we go. That's my interpretive dance of what AJ's statement is. But we will, I'm not surprised at all. So we will take that under advisement another day because I have an appointment to get to. But we'll see tomorrow at the top of the show. We'll see tomorrow how close I am. That's me. I told y'all that was me saying we had an appointment. So yeah, we will look at the top of tomorrow to see the top of the morning. We will look at the top of tomorrow, or the shank of the evening, as it were. We will look at the shank of the evening to see how close we are. Other things that I have my eye on: the extensive lawsuit in the Washington State Koberger adjacent case is on the docket. We have a lot of Corey Richin stuff to get to that is also on the docket. I will probably put up a poll in the member space about what we want to get to first. Wait, who's being shanked? The evening is being shanked. So I will put up a poll in our member spaces to see which we cover first, because we do have some Corey Richin stuff to cover in addition to that civil lawsuit. There are some other lawsuits that are a little less serious that are on the docket. There is nothing new with regard to Ron or the TikTok psychic. We are just in a holding pattern. There has been not a peep of a filing with regard to the TikTok psychic. I think we probably won't see anything filed until the court date is set for the pretrial conference. That's an in-person pretrial conference. If somebody doesn't show up in person, if they don't show up in person, that's going to be a big problem. I think that that's the most reasonable outcome to all of this, is that they don't show up in person. My only question is, what will the court do then? That's my question. Not is it going to happen, because I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. That the spidey sense is that that's what's going to happen. We also have a couple new cases that I am keeping an eye on, some more in the civil realm, some more in the strange criminal realm, but those I think I'm going to save for the podcast. So lots to cover. I'll put up a poll later on today. Lawnards, I hope that we were able to answer some of your questions regarding the Tepe murder, the arrest of Michael McKee, and what's going on next. I know I can't answer all of those questions for you, because when you look at a divorce, it's almost a decade old. We don't know what was leading up to this. We don't know what circumstances were going on. There's a lot of information we're just not going to have. And it's hard to wrap your head around all of the fact scenario in this case. There's just so much that we don't know. And that is going to just take some time. So what I would caution on is, I've seen a lot of people reading a lot into not a lot of information. And that's not what we do here. What we do know is that the murder charges were elevated. that both victims were shot and killed multiple times, that there is going to be quite a bit of digital evidence. They've already used that digital evidence to track the person walking, they believe at this point is the defendant, into a car that is the defendant's and connected to the defendant's. They are going to have a lot more information about the travel of that car and being able to track that car. What other digital evidence exists, we will see, but your phone and Google are going to tell on you. And I imagine that it will either be what the phone was doing and where the phone was, or the fact that the phone was suddenly not doing anything at all, because both of those things tell in different ways. And we will see. We will see what information we learn. But I also have a lot of questions. We don't have a ton of answers. We're going to have to wait. I know. But we have a court process. There has been an arrest, and we will see what plays out in court, because that is what we do. We have lots to cover this week. A lot of you are asking me about other trials that have just gotten started. My schedule is not a trial schedule, but on occasion we will go back and cover trials in hindsight. There's just a lot going on this month that would be hard to get into trials, especially since we're getting into trial next month, and there's a lot to cover leading up to it. But I'm keeping an eye. If we go back and cover something after it is complete, we might do that. It just depends on timing. So we will see. Law Nerds, you're the best. I gotta go. I know my alarm said go 5 minutes ago. It's a long goodbye. You guys are the best. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. I will see you tomorrow. And, well, we'll see tomorrow what we're talking about tomorrow. I mean, I'll know before tomorrow, but I'll let you know when I see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a Law Nerd. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Emily, again, that's not the outro, girl. This one. It's this one. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you don't miss a live stream or any of the updates on the cases that you care about most with the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. It's a free download on iOS and Android, so I can keep you in the loop, because you never know when something's going to pop off. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being a Law Nerd.